Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Tai'Shar Manethrin, a Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Will.
I'm Sam.
And we are continuing today in a Path of Daggers, everyone's favorite, I don't know.
Nature trail. I
don't know. I don't know what it is. Anyway, here we are. We're here. We're slogging along.
We are. That's true.
So Sam is doing the walkthrough today, and I'll be adding my commentary. So we're starting in Chapter 3, I believe.
Indeed.
Sam,
Chapter
take
3.
us away.
Chapter 3, A Pleasant Ride. As I said in a previous episode, assume skip unless I say otherwise. Chapter 3, absolutely a skip, 100% a skip. We're going to have fun talking about it anyway, though. So the Supergirls are riding with the Windfinders and some kin on the road from Ibudar on the way to the Kin Folk Farm. Still a drought on, and plants are dying everywhere they look. So probably about time to use the jolly old bowl, isn't it, ladies?
Mm-hmm.
Elaine laments that could be a pleasant ride if not for the kin and Windfinders. Everybody except us. She tells Avienda she can't whip up on the sea folk. Avienda can't, at least not until after they use the bowl. They kind of need them to be on their side. But Avienda is mad because Kieran, one of the sea folk, didn't tell Elaine Avienda's message, vague though it was. And Avienda says, "I will bite my knife, but my liver will burst for it." Okay, that seems bad. I don't know why that would happen.
Are there a lot of toxins in this knife?
Don't bite it, and don't let your liver do that. That doesn't seem like those two things should be related.
You need the liver to live, hence the name.
Yes, live longer. Adelius makes like an Aes Sedai and sticks her nose in someone else's business. She tells Elaine that Elaine should let Avienda loose on the sea folk so that they'll show this proper respect and fear for Aes Sedai. Elaine's like, why? Adelius says it will restore balance. If the sea folk feel the need to be protected from an Aiel, it might be useful because they're not really giving the Aes Sedai the respect they're due. Elaine says, go ride with the others, but curses inwardly because she knows Adelius makes a good point. Something has to be done to temper the sea folk. Avienda says, I'm happy to serve you, even if it serves an Aes Sedai end. So Elaine gives Avienda the go-ahead, but says, don't be too emphatic. There are 20 of them, after all, and only one of you. Avienda, quote, gave her a grin with a bit of wolf in it and drew her mare away to wait for the sea folk. Elaine watched her ride next to Kieran, speaking calmly without looking at her. Kieran looked at her, though, with considerable astonishment. Then after Renial sends a junior Windfinder to tell Elaine to snub Avienda. And that's a weird thing to tell someone. Elaine says, I can't do that because Avienda isn't Aes Sedai. She's Aiel, and y'all know how they live.
Y'all know how they be. I do think that's funny. I was just listening to this part. She's just like, and you know how they are.
You know, because we remember the sea folk had said, like, is it true that they asked Avienda, do you have to kill a man every day or something?
Yeah, right. Yeah. To Elaine's credit, she's being very Aes Sedai by saying that because she's actually not lying or anything. Not lying or anything. She's just saying, you know how they are.
Draw your own conclusions. Next, the Aes Sedai scheme to have the Dark Aja lady, Ispan, put in their care instead of the Kins. The Kin really want that to happen too because they are not comfortable shielding an Aes Sedai, even one known to be a Dark Friend that tried to kill them, succeeded in killing some of them. After a few try this, Elaine goes off on Marillilla, but when she insinuates that the Kin might have Dark Friends among them, Elaine makes the excellent point that Marillilla wasn't even there when the Kin and the Supergirls fought the Black Aja and the Rahad. So get out of here, and if you bring it up again without proof, I'll set a penance on you. Even though she isn't sure she can do that, but she's channeling her inner queen, and so kind of has that confidence. But then she also realizes she is shouting and shrieking, and Marillilla is pale as a sheet. But after that, other Aes Sedai tried to make the same thing happen. Saritha says there's no way the Kin are as old as they claim. Elaine says, we'll learn the truth sooner or later. Now get out of here. They pass some boulders that Carrie Ann says once were the toes of a gigantic statue. Elaine responds with, Ispen stays where she is. And Nynaeve is nowhere to be found to deal with this foolishness. She's glued to landside. When she does show back up, everyone is playing nice. Avienda also discusses in some detail the more intimate moments with Rand, which is just really great. Perfect. Elaine is less jealous that this has happened than wishing she could have similar time with Rand. But she does change the subject. He will listen to advice even when he doesn't like hearing it. But if I tried to push him, he dug in his heels even when it was plain that I was right. Was he that way with you? Not a pleasant. So Nynaeve comes back and says they'll be at the Kin's farm soon. So she asks Lan to get Rihanna to the front so that they see a familiar face right off. She tells the Aes Sedai to throw their hoods up so the Kin don't freak out and gives a self-satisfied nod. There, all settled. And all right, I vow, Elaine, I don't know what you were moaning about. Everyone's doing exactly as they should, as far as I can see. Okay.
Well, this is around the time that Elaine's also like, I can't wait to get back to Camelin so I can see about becoming queen and everything. And it's like, oh, don't worry, we'll get there.
We will. It's going to take some time. We'll get there. On to Chapter 4, A Quiet Place. John Krasinski slowly puts a finger to his mouth with a shushing motion. Emily Blunt's eyes widen in fear. No, I'm just kidding. The Kin's farm is.
No, I think if anything, John Krasinski in these scenes is looking into the camera, giving a little smirk.
The Jim look.
Like, yeah.
What are we doing here? The whole time, just constantly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the Kin's farm is more like a village, nestled between 3 hills with 4 barns off to one side. Nobody much cares when the line of horses trot up. They must get plenty of traffic from Ibudar. Middle-aged lady walks up, who Rihanna names as Elise. She says, I hardly expected to see you, Rihanna. With some hesitation in her voice, she says the other's name. Who are these? And then she sees the Aes Sedai and all Shale Ghul breaks loose. I mean, not really. Not a sudden shadow spawn attack. Dang it. Sometimes it's hard to do this without profanity, I have to say. To get a little bit creative. The Aes Sedai have their hoods up, but of course that doesn't really stop anybody from seeing their faces. I mean, have you ever worn a hoodie and walked up to your buddy and then said, boo, it's me? And he was like, oh my gosh, it is you. No.
Right.
He says, why you that hoodie up like a dweeb? You trying to be Zuckerberg or something? Get out of here.
I don't know. I assume their hoods must be very large. And
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Because that gets mentioned throughout the series several times where it's like, oh, they had their hood up. It's like all the times since I made a MCU joke in the last episode, all the time, like at the end of WandaVision, like she pulls her hood up and walks off. Like,
right. Like this is disguising me very well.
Right. And you see that all the time in those movies where it's like, hey, it's Captain America, but he's got a hood up.
So he is incognitus.
He's wearing a baseball cap. So you can't.
You don't know who he is.
Right, exactly.
I will say wearing a hoodie is comforting. Like I get why Zuckerberg does it, etc. It is kind of like having a security blanket, but it does not hide my face at all. Some lady howls, Aes Sedai, and all the women at the farm scatter and or faint. So Nynaeve yells for the warders to run after them into the olive groves. Elise looks at Rihanna and says, why? Did they give you bribes, immunity? I vow you won't walk away from this smiling. Rihanna says, it isn't what you think. The tower knows about the Kin, has always known. They said we can go back. Elise says, great, but what about those who got put out? I learned too slow. Why would we go back to be novices the rest of our lives?
I'm an idiot. Why would I go back?
I was a dropout. Nynaeve says, you can be part of the tower if you wish. This is wasting time. We have work to do. So if there's anyone here we can use, let's find them and get to it. So Marilella puts in that the Atha Ambier are impatient to be off their horses. Some may require healing. Elise says, if there are 20 sea folk so far from the sea, I'll believe anything. Nynaeve says, well, we'll heal them if they ask politely.
I just love that. We'll heal them if they ask politely.
Yeah.
Like,
because they don't usually ask politely.
Somebody sitting there with like their I don't know, like arm hanging on by like one flap of skin, and
what do you say? What's the magic word?
I don't know if you're asking politely.
I think that's my break time. I'm going to go. Anyway, they get all the kin gathered up and revive the ones who fainted. And wait, Adelius and Vandine have Ispan now. Aes Sedai always seem to get what they want. So they walk her over to a farmhouse, and Elaine and Avienda follow. Adelius and Vandine waste no time in starting to interrogate Ispan to find out what the Black Aja was doing in Ibudar. They also want to make sure the Black doesn't know that the farm exists. Ispan denies that the Black Aja exists, and y'all are going to be in trouble with the true Amerlin for this. Avienda pulls out her knife. Elaine tells the older Aes Sedai to leave, knowing that if she follows through with torturing Ispan, she'll have to do a penance or something. She's willing to, though, because as usual, the stakes are high enough, usually when she's doing this sort of thing. Vandine asks to speak with her outside for a moment. They overhear Nynaeve shouting at a noble lady, and Vandine says it's best for women with experience to handle this sort of thing. The young can get caught up in hot blood. Worst of all is if they develop a taste for it. We'll handle this. Then she nods like they've accepted her argument, goes back in the door, and shuts it behind her. Elaine feels the power being woven and realizes they've warded the room so no one can hear what's happened. Elaine and Avienda go back to the pack horses and start sifting through the rest of the rubbish from the Rahad. There's all sorts of Tirangreal: cups, bowls, vases, necklaces, bracelets, a belt.
Spatulas.
Yeah, porta potty. Avienda finds a dagger with gold wire wrapped around a hilt. The blade is dull, but her hands begin to tremble holding it. Elaine finds 2 more Angreal, a golden bracelet with 4 chains connected to finger rings, and a statue of a seated woman with long hair that covers her head to toe. Elaine muses that it looks like it could have been made for one particular woman. Maybe they did that sort of thing in the Age of Legends. Made, here's an Angreal I made for you for a housewarming gift.
Right, yeah. Kind of makes sense.
Sure.
Live, laugh, love, Angreal to hang on the wall.
Nynaeve strides up and says that all that can wait. It's time. Chapter 5, The Breaking Storm. So I guess this would be a read. This is the one we've been getting to. This has been building for a long time. So
I think you need to read this one.
This is probably a read, at least a skim.
Yeah.
So The Breaking Storm. This particular one isn't Gathering. We're a good many books away from that yet. Elaine and company climb a hill next to the barn to like a mesa. Not really a mesa. What qualifies a hill as a mesa anyway? Like, at what point does a flat-topped hill cross the mesa threshold? I guess with mesas, you're supposed to have, like, steep sides, but there's, like, a couple of steep sides.
Well, I think, for one thing, they have to be in the American West and identified by, like, the Navajo Native American.
Details.
I don't know.
Nynaeve grumbles that they wasted an hour trying to figure out which of the kin are strong enough to join the Bull Circle. That sounds like a drug reference, maybe. Honestly, I wouldn't know. Mom, if you're listening, seriously, I wouldn't know.
The Bull Circle. Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, I certainly wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But,
I've never been asked to join a Bull Circle. I mean, man. 3 of the kin are strong enough, but other than 2 others, no one else at the farm came close. So Nynaeve is a little huffy about that. Elaine notices Avienda walk right up to the edge of the sheer cliff, so maybe a partial mesa. Not in the American West.
You're really stuck on this mesa thing.
I am. I Googled mesas for a while when I was writing these notes.
That's a little bit indicative of how not interesting the actual
even this chapter, which is ostensibly more interesting than others, still not that interesting.
Right.
Elaine asks Avienda what's wrong, and Avienda says, I failed you. I can't make a gateway right. Thought a servant was a shadow spawn. The sea folk glare at the Aes Sedai like I'm their yapping dog. No maiden is allowed to question a prisoner for the first 20 years, so I wouldn't have had the faintest idea how to get Ispan to talk. I'm weak and soft, and if I shame you again, I'll die. So Elaine pulls her back from the edge, literally, says, you ain't failed nobody, but honestly, there is nobody in the world who would call you soft.
Right.
Plus, there's no doubt the sea folk are scared of you. I couldn't torture Ispan either, so we share that. Avienda has been teaching Elaine maiden hand talk and signs, you startle me, and smiles. Says we both have weakness, but it brings no shame as long as only we two know. So Elaine gives Aviendha the woman wrapped in her own hair Angreal statue. That ain't sanitary, man. The hairdress, I mean, not the statue. Never mind. Right. Aviendha says this is a very great gift and touches Elaine's cheek, which is the ideal equivalent of a hug and kiss. All this stuff makes me think that there is a very strong case to be made for the free love thing that we've talked about before in the show. Right. I don't think that's what Jordan was going for here, but I mean, I think it crossed his mind too, probably.
Sure.
Like he doesn't. Well, it's never explicit that I know of. Is it?
I don't think it's ever explicit.
I don't think so. No, I don't think it's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this, all that. I don't think I'm in spoiler territory here. I mean, this is like what's happening right now, you know?
Yeah, I the thing is, you can definitely draw it out. There's stuff there.
I'm sure there's people that they're gonna write in and say it's very explicit. This is absolutely what happened. Yeah. And maybe they're right. I all I'll say is when I read this the first time as a high schooler, it just didn't cross my mind. Honestly,
well,
the idea didn't cross my mind.
I'll say this. I mean, and it's. I want to be clear. I'm not making any kind of statement against.
No.
These relationships.
Right. We're talking about the presence of it in the book. That's what we're talking about for sure.
I do feel like sometimes because of our current culture being where it is, that we forego the idea of close relationships, close friendships that aren't sexual, and I feel like we miss out sometimes because I hope most of the people reading have some close friendships that are emotionally intimate without being sexually intimate. And I mean,
and it does seem like there are times that it touches on it here, like when she caresses her cheek or something. Like you could see how that you could see that either way, and it's just whether or not it. Yeah. I think you're right.
Like I said, it's not crazy to draw it out, but I agree with you. I don't think it's actually explicitly in there. Yeah. And now I would not at all be surprised if that's the direction they go on the TV show with it.
Yeah, and in my mind, I wouldn't be upset with them doing that because there is the subtext, at least in the book.
Right.
Like there's precedent there. You're not just, you're not like suddenly having Perrin and Lan have a relationship. Like, sorry, that's just not in the book. Like you can write the fiction, go for it. maybe it's out there. It probably is out there, but it's not in the book. Whereas this, at least there is some precedent. So, that's right. Like, I don't have a problem with that at all. But I definitely have thought about that a lot in this book because there is this sort of content where you can, especially when you're looking for it, you can start to see where somebody would be coming from when they see it.
Yeah. And it's definitely more present in this book than it's been up to this point.
Right. Nynaeve walks up and apologizes, says, I've been behaving like a fool and it's that bloody man's fault. So tell me when I'm behaving like a fool. So Elaine is shocked, speechless. She says, stop behaving like a giddy girl and lead us, Nynaeve. And instead of getting her hackles up, Nynaeve mumbles, I'll try, and I'm sorry. And Elaine nearly swallows her tongue. Then the moment's over. Nynaeve asks, which Angreal is hers? So Elaine gives her the bracelet and rings. I wonder if can someone use more than one Angreal? I don't know. I don't think so. Because she had two. I was thinking, is she going to use both of them? But I think you have to focus on one. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I can't remember.
Listeners, if you can think of a time when someone in the books has used more than one Angreal at the same time, I'd be interested to hear about it.
Like I was trying to remember in Rand's fight with Asmodean. His little fat man Angreal kind of tipped the balance.
Maybe you're right. Okay, because they both were okay, well, you could make an
holding
argument.
Onto the Choden Call.
You can make an argument for either way there, because it's like, were they both drawing from the Choden Call, or were they just fighting over it? And I'm not sure. We could go back and read it. That's a good
question.
Point.
They're neither of them are actually accessing the Choden Call.
I'm not
but
sure.
It was the fat man that allowed Rand to seize the Choden Call.
That's
maybe I don't know.
Thought, but you could be right too. Maybe they both had half of it, and then he drew additional power from the fat man Angreal. Yeah, I might have to go back and read. That's an interesting observation. Let's get to the bowl. But first, roll call and lots of ceremony. While Renila,
I think, maybe.
Okay. Gosh darn it.
I don't know.
These names.
Whatever.
Yeah, you're probably right. Calls up the Windfinders who will be in the circle. I'm not going to go through the names.
Caradin, Galen, Running, Weave.
Wave. Yeah, that's the one. That's the main one that's going to lead it. Apparently, she knows what to do with the bowl. That is, after all, why the sea folk are here. So she yells silence and says, we will do what has not been done since the breaking. I have studied the ancient lore and know more than anyone else. What the Aes Sedai can't do, I will. I will not accept failure. Nynaeve, you will now demonstrate how to link. Be about it, woman, and quickly. Nynaeve does so. She links with Elaine. Elaine explains what you have to do. You have to open yourself to the source, but not embrace it, which is really hard to do for long periods of time, like holding a fresh chocolate chip cookie an inch away from your face. Well, now I have to go. I got to go to Kroger and buy some cookie dough. So we're just going to have to pause. And Nynaeve explains that she can control Saidar through Elaine like an Angriel, so she can draw more than she could otherwise, but can't cause a woman to be burned out, nor can a link be formed unless both women are accepting of it. A willing surrender is necessary. So Nynaeve demonstrates the link to Elaine, who links with Avienda and the rest of the circle. Carrie, whoever her name is last. And after linking with her, Elaine says, I will now pass the link to you just as it is ripped from her, which is apparently not a very nice thing to do or feel. Not very polite. So Kyrie, I'm just going to call her a different name every time I read her name, rubs her hands together and says, good, let's get to channeling. So she weaves a complex weave of all 5 powers and a 4-pointed star that she lays atop the bowl. The bowl turns blue and white clouds billow across it. The 4-point star becomes 5 and the bowl turns green like the sea. 5 becomes 6, then 7. Oh, good. We didn't stay with a pentagram. That's good. Going through the seasons now, column of Saidar rises into the air from the bowl. And then Elaine realizes the bowl is channeling Saidin as well as Saidar, intertwined together. So the column pushes a wave of power across the sky in every direction. Carrie leans back and releases the source, saying, it is done. And that apparently is also not how you're supposed to end a circle. So she's done all the things wrong. And everyone kind of is like they've been punched in the face or something, just shocked. So Nynaeve looks around and asks if they actually did anything, and Care says, do you think weaving the winds is like throwing the helm over on a darter? I just moved the rudder on a skimmer with a beam as broad as the world. He will take time to turn, time to know he is supposed to turn, that he must turn, but when he does, not the father of storms himself will be able to stand in his way. Nynaeve and Elaine both feel an echo of Saidar. Someone is channeling from Ibudar. They all think it's the Forsaken, but nope, it's our good buddies, the Shan-Chan. And Rockin' are in the sky, and everyone flees.
I just do think it's interesting how we're reminded there how the sea folks refer to ships as him, not her.
Yeah, for sure.
For one thing, and they're, because they're personifying the world as a ship, also referring to the world as a him, which is further different from
opposite.
The typical usually Earth is a she when personified also, and then we also hear. I don't know if this is the first time. It's the first time I remember it. The name of the Dark One, the Sea Folk would naturally choose, is Father of Storms. Father of Storms. Not to be
confused with the Storm Father. For those of us who following along with the Wave Kings, the Stormlight Archives. You got to read it, man. You got to read it. So
I absolutely will. I absolutely will. I'm I'm not looking forward to having to wait. And that's part of the reason why
I get that. I do. I just, man, I envy you having not read them yet, because
I know. And I that's part of the other thing is, like, I know I'm going to really enjoy them. I'm kind of like wanting to savor them.
Sure.
Finding the right moment.
Absolutely. Chapter 6, Threads. Talking green threads, operating system threads here. Sorry. Work on the mind.
Reddit threads.
I need to rant about this for a minute. Async await syntax is unintuitive and confusing. Green threads make 100% more sense. Yes, you're going to run into concurrency problems no matter which model you use, but I prefer not to trip over my feet trying to understand the concepts. Anyway,
sure.
Rant over. Thank you for indulging me there. Bike shedding is a big problem in computer science. There's way too much of it. People like to argue about things that don't matter.
Well, I mean, that's true regardless of what field you're talking about.
Very true. Very true. true. I agree with that. Elaine took her own advice and runs from the oncoming Shan-Chan. But she wants to laugh for some reason because she's acted queenly and issued orders and people obeyed. She gets taken down a notch, though, when she trips on a rock and tumbles head over heels down the rest of the hill. You know, it's like those cheese running crazy people. Have you seen that? Like the people who like run down the mountain after the rolling block of cheese.
Like Gouda and like wheels of cheese?
Yeah, the big wheels of cheese. Yep. It's the ones who win pretty much fling themselves down the side of a mountain,
right?
You know, head over heels. 15 years ago, maybe I would have been dumb enough to try that.
Absolutely, you would have. Having known you for about 20 years.
You knew me, especially in that time when I definitely would have done this. Yeah, I now have a few lifelong injuries, so less so, although still occasionally. Birgitta asks if they run or fight, and Nynaeve says, of course we run, and starts yelling, where are you, Elise? And the farm is even more in chaos than when the kin recognized the Aes Sedai earlier. Elaine notices Jaime Van Dien's grizzled warder run by carrying a jute sack. Had to Google that, and yep, it's exactly what you're picturing. Big old burlap sack. Elise appears and says, no need to screech to Nynaeve. It's such an infuriating thing to say.
Telling a fish not to swim, though.
Yeah. She says she told everyone to grab some clothes, food, and money. Now you go gather yourself, drink some cool water, and not too fast. Now I need to go keep an eye on things. Some would slack off if Trollocs were coming over the hill. So she leaves Nynaeve standing there slack-jawed. Elaine goes to find Aviendha and check on the pack horses. Everything has already been put away and is ready to go. All the ladies who were in the circle are worn out, and Elaine and Aviendha are no exception. Elaine, she sort of describes it as like, it's not as bad as if you'd been channeling that much yourself, but being in the circle and being the channeling coming through you is exhausting in and of itself, which makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
Elaine feels quite protective of Tirangriel. No way some random Aes Sedai is going to pry them away from her, as we've said before. Order begins to emerge as people get their stuff together. Adelius and Van Dien walk out with Ispan between them, and everything seems the same, except Ispan is unusually compliant. And once everyone is together, Elaine makes a gateway. She has more trouble than usual, though, on account of the circle. The flows waver in her grasp and then snap into place. She's opened it to one of her estates in Camelin, about a 2 weeks ride from the city. On her way through, Elise hands Elaine her hat and says, you'll want to keep the sun off that sweet face. No need to turn leather before your time. Aviendha laughs, so Elaine says, I'll ask her to find you a hat. Nynaeve asks Elaine why she is still holding the gateway open, and after everyone is through, Elaine takes a breath and says, take everyone to the manor house. I'll be along as soon as I can. Aviendha and Elaine both say, what are you doing? Right as Elaine plucks a thread from the gateway. Well, no turning back now. She doesn't want to take the risk that a Damani can see the residue, A, and learn to make a gateway, or B, follow them through to the estate. Nynaeve says, I won't let you do it. You could kill us or burn yourself out. Aviendha says, well, it's too late. She's already started. So Nynaeve gives Elaine a big hug that makes her ribs creak and says, be careful. Aviendha and Birgitta stay behind, and Elaine says, you should go too. Not happening, of course. Elaine says, I am grateful to have friends like you. To which Birgitta grins, but Aviendha blushes furiously. She says, you should wait until everyone is out of sight, but not too long. She said the weaves will begin to glow slick and harder to handle the longer you wait after you first start the unweaving. So we're making up all kinds of rules at this point. Although they make sense. I mean, you could see
yeah, they're consistent.
They're consistent. It's just like, this has never come up before. It's just like, we're getting an opportunity to learn more about the rule, the magic system, I guess.
In his defense, it does stand to reason that we wouldn't have heard everything about the magic system.
Sure. And it's not like anything up to this point would contradict this. So like you said, consistent, and that's fine.
Right. It's just, it is a little odd that we've heard absolutely nothing about the idea of unweaving something.
Right. It takes forever to do this and is a lot harder than Aviendha made it look. Then the Shan-Chan show up and start charging through the gateway, firing crossbow boats. Yeah.
I just pictured a crossbow that, when fired, just shoots a full-size galleon.
Yeah.
Just like, it's a regular-size crossbow. You fire it, and this enormous ship just appears and whacks the person that you're firing it at.
It seems like something that would be in a Final Fantasy game, you know.
Crossbow boats.
Yeah, some kind of
armed and dangerous.
Yes.
That with the Landshark gun. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google Landshark gun, armed and dangerous, and look it up on YouTube. It's funny.
I shall after this is done. Brigitte returns fire with her bow, and Avienda begins hurling fireballs through the gateway, even though she's clearly exhausted. A Damani throws lightning through, but then they hear a voice say, "Must take them alive, you fools." I love Kate Redding's take on a Shan-Chan accent. It's so great. Just sounds so drunk or something.
Yeah, it totally just sounds like somebody who's just
take them alive, fools.
Just a little bit too much to drink.
Yeah, it's just great. I really need that to be the way that the show handles the Shan-Chan. It's important.
I mean, it would have been funny if they had done the Texas accent.
Yeah, for sure.
You must take them alive, you fools. By golly.
You could even mix together, like, Marlon Brando with like the cotton balls in the mouth mixed with the Texas thing. I would show up for that. Be okay.
Yeah, somebody needs to figure that one out. Mm-hmm. I say you must take them alive, you fools.
Now we're in, I feel like we're in Elmer Fudd territory a little bit. I don't know why.
Yeah, I realized it sounded more like Droopy Dog than anything else.
Droopy Dog. That's a good point. Okay.
You may take them alive, you fools.
That would also be acceptable for the Shan-Chan.
Yeah.
Elaine says, "Y'all get away. I don't know how much longer I can hold on to this. I'm not going to be able to finish doing this, unraveling it safely." Brigitte says, "You better not let go until I tell you to." So she heaves her up in the saddle and heads for the hills. They make it to the crest just as a Damani throws a shield between Elaine and the power, so she didn't actually give up. She had the power wrenched from her. Whoopsie! The air turns white and a shock wave hits them and knocks everyone down. Everyone's okay except for Lioness, which is an awful name for a horse anyway, so probably for the best. Elaine will leap for her, Elaine will weep for her horse later. She will leap. Maybe she will. I don't know. She will definitely weep for her horse later. They climb to the top of the hill to see the devastation. It was like a mini nuke went off right. where the gateway had stood. Elaine says, "I'll try to do better next time." Avienda says, "It did take me 50 tries to unravel a simple flow of wind tied in a knot without having a clap of thunder in my face. So you should have started simpler." Elaine says, "Well, at least we found a new weapon." And Avienda says, No, you don't understand. Could have been just a flash of light, or you couldn't have burned out yourself and any woman who can channel in 100 paces. So Elaine says, I want to adopt each other as first sisters." Kisses Avienda's cheek. Avienda responds in kind, and Brigitte says, "Nynaeve and Lan are coming." So we briefly switch to Chulainn, who is a Shan-Chan Morat Rakan, basically a dragon rider, not of Pern. She talks to her fellow dragon rider lady about how the other one wants to buy an inn. Then their small talk is cut short when Elaine's exploding gateway knocks him out of the air. Her Rakan Sagani barely manages to right himself before smashing into the earth. The other rider fell off, though. Sad. The farm is gone, foundation scoured clean of buildings. Kind of like the Aes Sedai set off an A-bomb there, which is sure what it looks like to Chulainn, who turns her Rakan south to report back. And that brings us to the end of...
I know. Amazing.
Chapter 6.
Congratulations. You've gotten through another episode with us here. If you enjoyed it, then why don't you go on and tell us? You could always visit our website at tsmpodcast.com. Mm-hmm. Fill out the contact form, say some nice things, offer a correction, offer a response to maybe one of the questions we ask. Also, if wherever you get your podcasts, go give us a rating, a review, and tell your friends about us that are getting into the Wheel of Time. We just redid The Eye of the World with a spoiler-free version. So actually we are very, I think, a good option for folks that are just trying to start off.
Absolutely.
If they will start there. So, and if they're confused about where to start, we actually have an episode now called Start Here that actually instructs them to go to The Eye of the World.
Right.
Anyway, as always, guys, thanks so much for joining us. And until next time, Tai'Shar Manetheren.